وذكر فإن الذكرى تنفع المؤمنين.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الأمين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد. So, welcome, thank you for joining us, and alhamdulillah, today everything is working as opposed to last week. I've got the high-tech LED boards here that have the points on them. We're talking about the signs before the Day of Judgment. Now, when you're talking about the signs before the Day of Judgment, you're dealing with the unseen. So you're talking about things that will happen in the future, things that sometimes we've been given limited information. So the perfect knowledge is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The perfect wisdom is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So because we're dealing with the unseen, and people love conjecture and guesswork, and they are taken by, the mysterious. So they try to come up with explanations, and they end up sometimes being ridiculous, sometimes being harmful, and they end up with estimations to the point where they put themselves in the place of someone who knows the unseen. And for that reason, it is very important that before you just jump into the signs or read the signs, you have to understand some of the guidelines that come with dealings with the signs before the Day of Judgment. We know that the Day of Judgment itself, only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows when it will happen. The angels don't know, and Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam doesn't know. And it is fruitless to try to even come up with an estimation of when it's going to be. There's some people who tried to calculate backwards. Alright, so basically what they did, for one, some relied, or there is a weak hadith that says that the 10 major signs before the Day of Judgment, the last one being the great fire, so that's really there at the Day of Judgment. There's a weak hadith that says the 10 major signs are 50 years apart. That means from the first major sign until the last one, we've got 500 years. So it's 500 years from the first one to the Day of Judgment. Now, what's interesting is, if they now can calculate roughly when the Mahdi is going to come out, they just add 500 years to that, and they can now roughly estimate the Day of Judgment. It will never work like that. And first of all, the hadith is weak. You cannot rely on a weak hadith like that. So, here are some guidelines, and we'll go to our first point on the board there. And it says, don't stop dunya related khair. Don't stop dunya related khair. If you're doing some good, whether you live during a sign or you feel that a sign is near, you keep doing what you're doing. This is a beautiful hadith narrated by Imam Ahmad rahimahullah. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, إِذَا قَامَتْ السَّاعَةِ, if it is the Day of Judgment, وَفِي يَدِ أَحَدِكُمْ فَسِيلَةٌ, and in the hand of one of you is a seed, فَلْيَغْرِسْهَا, then he should plant it. It's just, of course, it's hyperbole. It's an exaggerated way of saying it, of encouraging work. It's an exaggerated way of saying keep doing the good. If you made a hole in the earth, in the ground, and you have a seed in your hand, and you're about to plant this tree, and before you plant it, you realize it's the Day of Judgment. The Prophet ﷺ said, فَلْيَغْرِسْهَا, plant it. Keep doing work, keep doing good, even if it's the Day of Judgment. That seed, that plant, does it have any chance of growing and into a nice tree or a plant or bearing fruit? The earth is over. Why plant it? So it's a way of saying, keep doing the good. So, imagine now, someone says, I'm not going to get married. Why not? Why should I get married and start a family? The Dajjal is here. He's going to show up after a few years. So why do I have to put my children through the Dajjal and stuff like that, and going to kindergarten with the Dajjal's children? So the idea is that you keep doing good and you keep living your life also, no matter what's going on. And let me rephrase that. Within reason, of course, all right? That was the first guideline. You don't stop any khair, you keep doing the khair. The second point is to increase in worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is how to deal with the signs before the Day of Judgment. So you don't stop doing good, you increase in the worship of Allah Azza wa Jal. This is a hadith narrated by Abu Hurairah. It's mentioned in Sahih Muslim. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, بادروا بالأعمال فتنا كقطع الليل المظلم. So the Prophet ﷺ is saying, there are some fitan, some tests and trials that are going to come. They're going to come down like the black pieces of night. So he's saying, do a lot of good deeds before these things come to you. Do a lot of good deeds now before the day when these black tests and trials fall or come upon humanity. Then the Prophet ﷺ continues describing it. يُصْبِحُ الرَّجُلُ مُؤْمِنًا. A man wakes up a believer. وَيُمْسِي كَافِرًا. And then in the evening he's a disbeliever. أو يمسي مؤمنا, and he's a believer in the evening. ويصبح كافرا, and he wakes up a disbeliever. يبيع دينه بعرض من الدنيا. So he sells his religion for just a small morsel, some little bit of this dunya. So the hadith is saying that do good deeds before any kind of fitan. It's not talking about one specific one versus another, al-fitan in general. Corona, whatever it is. You're supposed to put effort into getting closer to Allah, especially at times when there are no fitan, because the fitan will come. Whether they're severe or whether they are slight, not as severe, whether they affect everybody or just a personal fitna in you in your personal life. Then what is interesting is the hadith is saying, if this is how you're supposed to act at times before the fitan come and excel in the worship of Allah, so then what about when the fitan do come? Even more so, we're supposed to excel in the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If any of you heard Shaykh Walid Basuni's khutbah, Friday khutbah today, very important message. It's like, this is something that has taken, we're talking about the coronavirus, right? It's taken lives and has affected, even if it hasn't taken as many lives as those who were infected, it has affected our world, affected our gatherings, affected our masjid, our salawat, our community, our teaching for our kids. It has affected so many things. So in the end, you look at the response of people, and it's again binge watching Netflix and just spending hours doing things that are useless. How many people actually intensified their worship of Allah Azza wa Jal during these times? How many people are reciting a lot more Qur'an than before, and so on and so forth? People are just bored, so they just want to entertain themselves. So I'm saying, the hadith is saying that you increase your acts of worship even before the fitan comes. So then what about when the fitan and the trials and the difficulties do come? Even more so. Alright, we'll move on to the next point. The next point, so this is not when studying the signs, this is how to deal with the signs of the Day of Judgment. Number 3, you remain steadfast. Remain steadfast. And some fitan, we're going to look at one today. The fitna is you have to stay away from it. Some fitan you have to stay away from people, from society, from individuals for a long period of time. The duration can be quite long. But you see, look at the example now. And I'm not saying the coronavirus is one of the signs before the Day of Judgment. I actually don't believe that personally. But look at just example now of people being steadfast. So you're supposed to remain in your homes. And look at the example in America, example in countries around the world, and I'm sure a lot of us have received WhatsApp videos of people who got sick and tired of staying at home, or women who got sick and tired of staying at home and they walked out and the police came. And so look at that, just remaining steadfast, stay in your home. And people can't handle that. And in their homes they have internet, they have computers, they have TV, they have all kinds of things. They can call people and talk to people and FaceTime people and Zoom people. And still they can't remain in their homes. Remaining steadfast is a very important point on how to deal with the signs before the Day of Judgment. Now we'll move on to the next point. I love this point. Don't test yourself. And that's the golden rule with anything. Like you're not supposed to test your iman. You're not supposed to test anything that is dear to you. For years, I've always been given the same example that everyone has some kind of device, some kind of screen that they love. Their phone, their tablet. And because you love it, you don't test it. Like I'm not going to take my iPhone or my Galaxy or whatever it is and leave it in the park, in the bench, and say, okay, let me leave it here and come back tomorrow and see if it's still here. Let me test if it will still be here. You don't test something that's dear to you. In the same way, the scholar said, you don't test your iman. You don't put yourself in near danger or borderline near danger to see if you're strong enough to withstand, to make it or not. And I could tell you some insane stories, but some of them wouldn't even be that kosher, for lack of a better term. So we're not going to go into that. But real stories of real people who tested themselves to see how much they could withstand and failed. One of my favorites, this one is simple. People who pray with the TV on to test their khushu'. Allahu Akbar, and the television's on. Habibi, without the TV on, it's a disaster. For most people, let's keep it real. For most people, it's a disaster even without the television. Your brain's just going everywhere. And now with the television on, I'll never forget, I was once listening to a lecture, this is a long time ago, by the Sheikh, and someone sent him a question. He said, Sheikh, sometimes I am following an important soccer match and I don't want to miss the salah, so I will pray in front of the TV as I'm watching the match. Is that permissible? Just make sure that you make your takbir with the goal. So when they score a goal, Allahu Akbar, right? Anyways, not testing yourself. When the Dajjal emerges, how do you deal with that sign? The Prophet ﷺ said, run away. Don't go test if you're a believer. Like, the Dajjal is out? Well, this is exciting. I want to know if I'm a believer or not. And I know that I'm going to withstand him. Prophet ﷺ specifically said that in a hadith. Said a man would go to him thinking that he's firm upon his religion, and then when he gets to him, he's persuaded by the Dajjal to follow, or to believe in him, to follow him. You know? So you don't test yourself. You don't, and let me talk to the Dajjal, try to persuade him, try to get him to change his mind. It's a waste of time. You can't make him change his mind. Just like you can't give da'wah or shahada to Iblis or your qareen, your shaitan that's with you the whole time. If you try, you can talk all night till you're blue in the face. He won't become Muslim. And it will look weird anyways, sitting alone in the room. Ya akhi, ittaqillah. Ittaqillah, ya akhi. Accept Islam. Anyways. Alright, we'll move on to the next point. Number 5, you have to behave based on the instructions given by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If the Dajjal comes, what are you supposed to do? Prophet ﷺ said, run away. If you hear that the Mahdi has come out, the real one, not the crazy ones. If you hear the real Mahdi has come out, what's your job? What do you have to do? What did the Prophet ﷺ instruct? He gave you these instructions so you can follow them and act upon them. Alright? The Prophet ﷺ spoke to Uthman radiallahu anhu in detail about his assassin, who is the one that will assassinate him, the events leading up to it. So Uthman radiallahu anhu behaved according to the instructions given by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So what's the value of the Prophet telling you what to do when the Mahdi comes if you don't do it? The Prophet said, when the Mahdi comes, you go to him and you make bay'ah to him. Even if you have to crawl over snow. Crawl over the snow and give bay'ah to the Mahdi. So the signs were put there, and the descriptions and the instructions from the Prophet ﷺ so that you can act upon them. The Euphrates River, one of the signs also, one of the minor signs is that the Euphrates River will dry up and it will uncover a mountain of gold. Now, as we speak, and you can Google this, the Euphrates River is drying up, as the Nabi ﷺ mentioned. But it will dry up completely and it will uncover a mountain of gold. Then the Prophet ﷺ described what will happen to people trying to retrieve that gold. He said, out of every 100, 99 people will die trying to get the gold. And one will make it. So will get killed. I mean, people are going to kill each other. That's how greedy. They're going to kill each other. So like let's say you're traveling when the mountain of gold is out, you've heard about it. So okay, I'm going to go get some gold. You see a man, he's like, I'm going to get some gold too. Let's travel together. You travel together. At night, you get up, you kill him. I don't want him to take any of the gold. First of all, it's a mountain of gold. It's a mountain. All right? What are you killing him for? But people are killing each other so they get more of it, killing each other over this quarrel. And out of every 100, one person makes it and 99 die. But then the hadith says, but everybody keeps going, thinking they'll be that one. What does that tell you? I know the odds are that there's a 99% chance I could get killed trying to do this. And I'm going to think to myself, there's a 99% chance I could get killed? that means there's a 1% chance of survival. Habibi, 1% chance. But people are still going to keep going. So that means when you hear that the Euphrates River has dried up and a mountain of gold has been uncovered underneath it, what should you do? Act upon these instructions. That means don't go. Now, if you are the first one to discover the mountain of gold and nobody else in the world knows, then come tell me. We will go get our share quickly, and then when everybody else hears about it, they can kill each other, but we'll have our gold. That's the plan. Anyways, so the Mahdi, we said the Mahdi, the Dajjal, the Euphrates. Okay, how about this? Before the Dajjal comes out, there's going to be starvation worldwide. It's going to be really bad. It's not going to rain. This is on the 3rd year. Not a single drop will fall on earth, and not a single plant will grow. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, all hoofed animals will die except what Allah wills. So the people then asked, Ya Rasulullah, how will people eat? And he said that their nourishment, their energy will all come from saying Subhanallah, walhamdulillah, wallahu akbar, wa la ilaha illallah. When they say that, that will be the equivalent of eating. Now if you don't know this hadith, and if you didn't follow the instructions, how would you survive at that point? How would you survive? There's no way you're just going to on your own guess that. I bet you if I said Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, it'll be like eating some chapli kebab. Never. And that's why Ibn Kathir rahimahullah, and he died about 800 years ago or so, he said this is from the importance of teaching the signs of the Day of Judgment to your offspring, and they teach it to their offspring, so that whatever of your progeny will be alive at that point, they know how to behave because they read the hadith. Alright, then we have some other points here. Not all events will take place in our times. Not just us, but every era, every century, people who are alive at that time have the tendency to explain the signs or to expect the signs to happen in their day or their lifetime. If you remember, I mentioned last time about one of the scholars from Al-Andalus, so this was hundreds of years ago, and he was so certain that the Mahdi will show up during his lifetime that if he died before the Mahdi showed up, he would tell his students, give the Mahdi salam from me when he comes. He was so sure they were living in Al-Mahdi times. And today, based on WhatsApp, Mahdi is just right around the corner. He's going to be here any minute, all right? Based on the internet, maybe he's already here. But it doesn't have to take place in our times. And we don't have to interpret every sign to mean something that is happening in our current world. I gave the example last time of the hadith that mentions a man's thigh will speak to him. Or maybe I didn't, I don't remember. But the point is, the hadith mentions that a man's thigh will speak to him. So we immediately explain that as the cell phone. And it could be the cell phone, but it could actually be a man's thigh speaking to him, because that is out of the ordinary, and the other two things mentioned in the hadith were out of the ordinary. So not everything has to fit our world, and it has to happen in our times. All right. Then moving on to the next point, which I've mentioned before, but it's a very important point. All the descriptions have to match. All the descriptions have to match. وين احنا؟ Are we on that screen? Okay. All right. The example I gave 2 weeks ago, if someone comes to you and says, my name is Muhammad ibn Abdullah, and the Mahdi's name is Muhammad ibn Abdullah, so go ahead. Well, first of all, it's not kissing hands. عمل لي كده. It's pledge. بوس على طول. So, okay, your name is Muhammad ibn Abdullah, but what about all the other descriptions that would make you the Mahdi, that will qualify you for being the Mahdi? So you're not qualified right now. You have to fit all the descriptions. I gave you the example of the Dajjal, and how someone said the Dajjal is the TV because it's in every home, and it lies, and it's one-eyed. And he said the TV is in every home, full of lies, and it has one screen. Okay, but what about the other descriptions? The Dajjal cannot enter Mecca and Medina. The Dajjal will cut a young man in half. The Dajjal will have an army. He will have the ability to bring the treasures out of the ground. He will have a river of fire with him, and he will have a river of cooled water with him. He will enter village after village, and he will cause it to rain and vegetation to grow. How does that even come close to being a television screen? Or Ya'juj and Ma'juj. And we get creative. Oh man. Someone came to me the other day and he said, Ya'juj and Ma'juj are not behind the barrier and they're out. I said, who are they? And this is like, again, it's a very embarrassing position to have. If you say Ya'juj and Ma'juj are not behind the barrier, there are just a people who are out on earth right now, then you have to tell me who those people are. And you're just calling people that have Muslims amongst them Ya'juj and Ma'juj. That doesn't make any sense. And it does not in any way match the description of the Qur'an and how the effort was put, physical work was done to trap them behind the barrier. When we get to Ya'juj and Ma'juj, inshallah, we'll look at that. But you have to match all the descriptions. Okay, coronavirus is one of the signs of the Day of Judgment. How is it one of the signs of it? First of all, in the sense that towards the end of times, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentioned that diseases will increase, illnesses will increase. In that sense, put corona, put SARS, put AIDS, put whatever you like. It's not a problem at this point. But there is no hadith specifically speaking about corona. No hadith speaking about corona specifically, coronavirus. One of the most annoying WhatsApp messages I got, this was in the beginning of this whole outbreak, and it was some guy who saw a dream 2 months before the corona outbreak, and it was a virus itself speaking to him. I will kill this many people, and it sounds nice and eerie and everything. It's just nonsense made up by someone on the internet, and is mentioning that I will kill everyone except the believers. فشلت your prophecy failed already. It's killing believers. And have you ever in your life, well, in our life, heard of something that just comes to Muslims and leaves, or comes to non-Muslims and leaves Muslims? Have you ever heard of anything like that? And how would that germ work exactly? How would that germ recognize a Muslim? Anyways, the believers will never be affected by me. So that means, look at how, if you're responsible, you don't write something like this. Because what if someone has a righteous father who dies from the virus? Then he reads your message and he believes it. Oh, that means my father was a hypocrite. He wasn't a righteous man. All right. Oh, yeah, okay. Let's see here. Yeah, let's go to the next point here. And it says, guidelines for studying the signs of the hour. So the first board was how to deal with the signs of the hour. These are guidelines for studying the signs of the hour. Number one, understand that some signs are detailed and others are vague. And it's not an accident, purposely. Some signs are detailed and some are vague. So that's how Allah intended them. That's how Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam intended them. So number one, do not try to fill in the blanks. كتر ألف خيرك. Don't try to fill in the blanks. This guy starts filling in the blanks, explaining what the beast is. That's not your job. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala purposely kept it vague and kept the rest of the information with Himself subhanahu wa ta'ala. And now you try to come and, well, let me نستنبط ايه? So it's like, oh, let me deduce some of this deduce? That's one, okay? So your job is not to fill in the blanks. And sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't give you the details, so you don't meddle. You don't meddle. Remember what I told you? Imagine we knew where Ya'juj and Ma'juj were trapped. Imagine we knew the exact location. Let's keep it real. What do you think would happen? Right now, if we knew exactly where the dam or the sad, the blockade for Ya'juj and Ma'juj was, we knew it right now, what do you think would happen? We would not leave them alone. True or false? We wouldn't leave. Even if the Muslims said, Taqullah, leave them alone, the Westerners would not want to leave them alone. One, they want to say, well, let's go let's go give these people freedom and bring them democracy and show them our world. Okay, that's one. Kattar alf khairak. America will first want to be like, oh, is there oil there? Because I'm going to kill all of y'all if there's oil. Okay, I'm partially kidding, but come on, that's the truth. People would try to meddle, and then you go in there and you open that thing, you open that barrier, and guess what happens? They're not going to be like, oh, thank you for freeing us. That's why Ya'juj and Ma'juj, I don't want to get into them too much, but why do they come out so angry? Because you're the ones who trapped us here for thousands of years. That's why they come out steaming mad. I want to free them and show them iPhones? They'll show you iPhones. All right. Don't meddle. People will meddle. And so that's why certain things were kept vague. Imagine we knew the exact location where the beast will be. Immediately, what do you think will happen? Some genius will come with a shovel. Yalla, طلع البيست, طلع. All right, let's get to the second point here. Number 2, it says gather all the narrations together to get the full picture. Gather all the narrations together and you'll get the complete picture. The Dajjal, there are numerous hadith on the Dajjal. You put them all together, you get a complete picture of when he emerges, what he looks like, his physical description, his height, his build, his hair, what his hair looks like, where he goes out in the beginning, who follows him, all that stuff. But there's no one narration that has all that. You put them all together. It's very important. When you just look at one narration without the others, you don't get a complete picture. If I just looked at one narration describing the Mahdi, okay, imagine that's all I look at. Or let's say I just know that his name is Muhammad ibn Abdullah. That's the only narration I looked at. I find any guy called Muhammad ibn Abdullah, based on that he's the Mahdi. But what if I'll put all the narrations together, then I can tell. I remember 2 weeks ago I told you the story of this fake Mahdi that I met, right? But the point is that he's saying that he's the Mahdi. And I'm saying I'm going to put you against all the ahadith. If they match you, I'll pledge to you. But if they don't match you, you're not the Mahdi, and you need to also stop saying you're the Mahdi. For one thing, An-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentioned that يُصْلِحُ اللَّهُ فِي لَيْلَةٍ, Allah rectifies him overnight. So some scholars said that means Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives all his sins overnight, yani in one night, next morning he's a different person. Others said he's not a religious person, very praying or anything like that. So overnight he becomes the most righteous one on earth. Now, if you're studying in a Qur'an halaqah for the last 3 years, and there's a very nice guy next to you, and one day he leans over to you and says, by the way, I'm the Mahdi, you need to pledge to me. So I've seen nothing but righteousness from this person. And he says, I need to pledge to him. You're disqualified because the Mahdi is rectified overnight. That's one. You're disqualified again because the Mahdi he never asked for the bay'ah. He is forced upon it. And he's not forced upon it in Sarasota, Florida. He's forced upon it in the Kaaba. Okay? Between the Rukn and Maqam. So he's there in that place. Not here, the guy in Florida asking you to give. So that's why you have to put all the narrations together, you get a complete picture of the sign. For those that have full details, others are vague, like we said. Let's go to the next point on our high-tech LED board here. It says interpretations of authentic narrations can differ. And even some of the companions sometimes differed on how do I explain this. And one thing, if you remember from 2 weeks ago, we said there can be multiple plausible explanations for a hadith. And this is not just today, but even back then, there were multiple explanations, all of them very reasonable and could make sense. And here's where the red flag comes up. If you're listening to a lecture, and it doesn't matter who it is, the speaker, or how big the beard is, or how well spoken, if they start to pinpoint with accuracy dates, times, and locations, that's a red flag, and that's when to stop listening to that person. That's it. It's the unseen. No one's going to tell you in exact detail. And anyone who excludes all the other plausible explanations and says, no, it's just this one, that's a big red flag. A big red flag. Some of you know what I'm talking about. As a speaker in the English language, he has a lot of series and he speaks a lot on the signs before the Day of Judgment. The history, knowledge, A+. Knowledge of politics, A+. Knowledge of the hadith and their explanations, F. So what happens when you mix good speech with some falsehood, it becomes mahshi. That's what it becomes. Kufta and mahshi. Exactly. That's exactly what happens. It becomes kufta, it becomes mahshi, and that's exactly what happens. So that's why many intelligent people will be like, oh, did you listen to this sheikh? He says some amazing things. Okay, maybe in history, maybe in politics, but in hadith, nothing was amazing in what he said. It was nonsensical, it was garbage, it didn't make any sense. We'll come back to that. All right, next point. For the most part, you take the signs literally. When the sun will rise from the west, the sun will rise from the west. A beast will come out of the earth. Guess what? A beast will come out of the earth. And nobody speaks like this and say, oh, a beast will come out of the earth. Oh, by beast, he means the sins of people. When have the sins of people ever been called beasts? Makes no sense. So, language is literal, like I said 2 weeks ago. Language is literal. Okay, if I say turn off that light, I mean turn off the light. I don't mean stop reading the Qur'an, because the Qur'an is nur. Huh? Who speaks like that? Anyways, number 5, you are not to make rulings out of the signs before the day of judgment. Alright? So we know that there is a Mahdi coming, so we go looking for the Mahdi. Or we go appoint a Mahdi. We've had it, 9 people sitting, they're unemployed, it's a rough time. So that, you know what, I've had it with this, we've had it with all this injustice on earth. Let's bring the Mahdi. Let's either go find him, or let's go and just appoint someone as the Mahdi. La ya Habib. You can't make a ruling out of these signs before the day of judgment. And it's very similar to the next point, which says the signs before the day of judgment, if something is a sign, it's not necessarily evil or haram. It's not necessary. I told you this before also. Sometimes we're recapping, sometimes we're adding new points, where someone came and he said that why these Arabs still building skyscrapers? Don't they know this is one of the signs before the day of judgment? So one thing is that, one explanation or one misunderstanding is that by building these tall skyscrapers, they're disobeying Allah because this is one of the signs before the day of judgment. The other misunderstanding is that by building skyscrapers, they are bringing the day of judgment closer. Don't worry about that. No one will ever do anything on this earth that will bring the day of judgment closer, except if it's an act that Allah decreed is one of those that, but no one's going to make it a few days earlier or a few hundred years earlier. No one's going to change its appointed time. Its appointed time is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let's read this quote from Imam al-Nawawi rahimahullah. I don't know if I read this or not. I don't think so. Yeah, Imam al-Nawawi said, this is concerning that 6th point, not everything is evil or haram. He said, not all that he sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned from the signs of the hour is prohibited or disparaged, because the competition between shepherds in constructing tall buildings and wealth increasing, because the competition in the shepherds building tall buildings is one of the signs before the day of judgment, and wealth increasing is one of the minor signs before the day of judgment. And the fact that a woman will have one qayyim, those who are in charge of their affairs will take care of them, 50 men will have one, he said, is without a doubt not haram. He said it's not haram. Rather, these are mere signs, and signs are not necessarily confirmed to that, meaning to the halal and to the haram. Towards the end of times, the Prophet ﷺ said, rarely will a believer see a dream except that it will come true. Is that bad? Is that evil? Is that haram? So not everything from the minor signs is about halal and haram. All right, and then we get to the last point on our board, that the fact that something is from the signs of the hour is not a reason to create or initiate it. And I kind of mentioned that the Mahdi is a sign is not a reason to look for the Mahdi or to look for the beast or to do anything to cause it to come sooner. Everything has an appointed time with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All right. From this point on, we move on to our next slide. I'm just waiting for my assistant to hit the button on the LED, the high-tech LED screen that looks just like my handwriting. The screen also speaks Arabic. Shukran. There we go. Thank you very much. Okay. So now my screen is just what's the word? It's just refreshing. The screen is refreshing. And then once the camera flips here, we'll continue. The point that I mentioned here is that I wrote down, it says it's the unseen. Okay, so understand that you're dealing with the unseen. And I mentioned this point under another one earlier. We said that the fact that it's the unseen, you will not know exact timings, you will not know exact locations, and if you did, it wouldn't be from the unseen. That's like the most important thing. And I always wonder sometimes, and that going back to that lecturer again, he's speaking as if Jibreel alayhi salam comes to him every night and tells him in perfect detail. Like the fact that you're speaking about the unseen with such certainty, don't you for a minute stop and tell yourself, how do I know this so well if it's the unseen? You're not even behaving like it's unseen, you're behaving like it's seen. That's not possible. I told you about this presentation. This guy, he's got this, on the projector screen, he's got Google Maps open. It's on YouTube, it's in Arabic. It's one of the most insane presentations I've ever seen. So this guy, the whole video is just a screen projecting on the wall, and you just see the shadow of his finger, and the map moves, and he's just putting his finger saying, okay, and just keep following this path right here. And then he's telling you the path that Dhul Qarnayn took thousands of years ago. And he'll tell you in detail as if he or his grandfather was with Dhul Qarnayn as they were, and he'll tell you. Then they made a right turn here, made a left there. They stopped for tea over here. Tash arrafak, man. How do you know all this stuff? And he's just going through. No one in the audience is questioning him. And then the map keeps moving on, and his finger is showing on the screen until he gets to this area, and he points to it. He says, that is exactly where Ya'juj and Ma'juj are. You're going to say it this casually, just so casually, you're going to tell me Ya'juj and Ma'juj are here? Bas kida? Like you know it? And that's it? MashaAllah alayk. Or this video of this expedition, these people, I can't remember if it was Turkmenistan or Tajikistan, but they're driving in the mountains and the cameras are just showing them driving for a long time. And then you see them stop somewhere and they just stamp their foot like this, and we're standing over Ya'juj and Ma'juj. Bas kida, huh? Alright. Or those who try to find the Dajjal. Oh my goodness. Let's get to that one. The next point is that there can be many plausible explanations. And not only can there be many plausible explanations, there can be more than one manifestation of a sign before the Day of Judgment. And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, towards the end of time, يَكْثُرْ فِيكُمْ الْمَالِ يَكْثُرْ فِيكُمْ الْمَالِ. Wealth will increase, will be abundant amongst you. So some scholars, now look at this, and tell me if any one of these three explanations doesn't make sense. They said, three explanations. Number one, some scholars said during the reign of Umar, the wealth increased so much. You know, when you don't have that much money, excuse me, that was not a dry cough, by the way. It was not a dry cough. During the time of Umar radiallahu anhu, the wealth increased so much that the tarika, what they leave behind of gold, silver, had to be broken with an axe. Whereas, if someone's poor, you just, okay, that's for you, that's little pieces for you. But they had to break whatever they left for inheritance with an axe. So we did see wealth increase a lot during the reign of Umar ibn Khattab. So some scholars said, يَكْثُرْ فِيكُمْ الْمَالِ. Yeah, here you go. It was manifested and happened. It took place during the reign of Umar. Makes sense or not? Makes sense. It already happened. Another group said, this will be after the Mahdi comes. Because Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, he will fill the earth with justice and wealth, distribute wealth. So, can that be plausible? And it's absolutely plausible that wealth will increase when the Mahdi comes. No objections here. It's from the hadith, it's straight, and it's a manifestation or it's an explanation of this sign happening. And then the third group said, this is after the return of Isa ibn Maryam. when Jesus returns, there will be so much wealth and blessing and barakah, you won't barely even be in need of wealth. So, is that plausible? All three were plausible. There are many plausible explanations. There can be more than one plausible interpretation of a sign, and the sign can take place sometimes more than once, which we're going to return to that rule. Okay, we've been going on for a while, haven't we? The next point is that you have to keep the chronology, the order of the chronological order. Stay in order. Yani, as I said before, the first three signs before the Day of Judgment, there's no dispute about them in their order. So one of the minor signs, the Mahdi, during his lifetime, the first major sign, Ad-Dajjal. And who kills the Dajjal? The second major sign, Isa ibn Maryam. And then right after Isa ibn Maryam kills the Dajjal, the hadith says, فَبَيْنَمَا هُمْ كَذَلِكَ. As they're in that situation, he just killed the Dajjal, someone warns that Ya'juj and Ma'juj have broken out. These three are in order. There is, and it's that same speaker again, he mentioned that Ya'juj and Ma'juj have come out years ago. But what about the other two that happened before? You have to follow the order. Or you tell me that the Dajjal is going to come at any minute. Or someone saw the Dajjal in a dream that he will be out in 5 weeks. Or in 9 months. طفل هو 9 months? طيب وين المهدي? Where's the Khilafah? Where's the Mahdi? Where's freeing Bayt al-Maqdis? Where's all this stuff? So you have to keep the order. You can't just jump around. Next point says, beware the garbage. Ya salam, ya salam. So much garbage out there. And let me tell you, so much garbage out there. So much garbage out there. Did I mention that there's so much garbage out there? Let's look at the next sign. And I'm going to use the next sign to explain the garbage. Don't deny a sign because you can't comprehend it. Do not deny a sign just because you don't understand it. Here's an example of that rule and garbage at the same time. There's a speaker, Allah al-Azim. There's a speaker on YouTube, okay? And don't try to guess because it's an Arabic speaker who sells himself as the science and very rational, very scientific based speaker. And he says, some of the most ridiculous. He's not even a young man, he's an old man. And he always has a picture of him looking like smart and stuff like that. And he always speaks in a way that says, you are just fools, listen to me. Like, when someone does that face, it says, just listen to what I'm saying. You guys are fools, you're ignorant. That's the look he has on his face the whole time. I'm not saying that's what he means, because I know the intention, people are going to jump in. Oh, brother, you don't know his intention. No one said intention. I'm saying that's the look it looks like. It could be, he means something different, but that's what it looks like. So, he said, how can the Dajjal be alive this entire time? Because if he was alive since the time of the Prophet ﷺ, and we have an authentic hadith mentioning that, then time would have taken its toll on his body. I'm not making this up. He says there is no such thing as a Dajjal. Yani we've got so many hadith, but you can dismiss them like this with a smirk on your face. Lesh, here are his logical or realistically, intellectually bankrupt arguments. Number one, he said he's been alive for thousands of years. When he comes out, he's going to be an old man. Cataracts, hunchback, shaking. Okay, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, astaghfirullah, didn't think of this part of the plan, that time's going to affect him. That's one. Number two, he said, we've scoured the earth, and we never, Google Earth, he said you can look at every spot on earth. There's no Dajjal. Aywa. So you're telling me Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decides and decrees that He is going to hide something from humanity until an appointed time. And you expect to just Google map it and find, just zoom in and find him chained looking up at or he's like frowning at the Google van, مثلا. Anyways, ridiculous. He is wrong that we have explored the entire earth. We have not even come close to exploring the earth. If you don't believe me, Google unexplored parts of the earth. That's number one. Number two, we said that he's saying that the Dajjal, time would have taken its toll on him. He'll be an old man. He would have died by now. As if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't plan for this. Then the scholars responded to that a long time ago. They said that there are other examples of people whom time did not take toll on their bodies. Here's one of the famous examples that we read every Friday in Surah Al-Kahf. The young men in the cave, they slept for how long? For 309 years. But when they woke up, they looked exactly like they did 309 years ago. What's the proof? When they woke up, the first thing they said is, Kam labithna? They said, how long were we sleeping? And one of them said, Labithna yawman aw ba'da yawm. We slept for a day, maybe part of a day. Now, this is proof that they did not look any different. Their hair did not grow, their nails did not grow. They looked exactly the same. 309 years took no toll and had no effect on their bodies. That's proof, because they thought they slept for half a day. But if time takes its toll on your body, first of all, they wouldn't wake up. Second, when they woke up, their nails would be 309 years long. Their hair would be 309 years long. And their breath would be kicking. So they would wake up and he'd move this mountain of hair and with all these nails, and he'd ask the other guy, hey, how long have you been asleep? And the other guy says, I think half a day. Oh really? Your nails grow like that in half a day? Anyways, the point is, let me just stop. The point is, there have been others that time has not taken a toll on their body. And Allah is capable of that. To tell me that the Dajjal doesn't exist because he'll be an old man by the time he comes out, or dead. And two, we can't find him. Yeah, Allah hid him, ya. Anyways, here's the worst part. Going back to the point about garbage. It's garbage. But if you look at the comments on YouTube, people are like, MashaAllah, Wallahi innu dhaki, wa abqari. He's a genius, brilliant. I never thought of that. Thank Allah you never thought of that. It means you don't think like a gada. That's why. It doesn't make any sense. So the worst thing than saying the garbage is being impressed by it. And this guy says his garbage, and you're impressed by it? I don't have any example to give but someone gives you garbage. You go to a fancy restaurant, they put trash on your plate. When the waiter came to you with the plate, you should have been able to tell that that's garbage, it's not food. Then when he put it in front of you, you took a whiff. You said, oh, it smells great. No, you should have realized it's garbage. But then when you took the first bite, you should have especially realized that it's garbage. But the guy finished the whole plate and followed the sunnah. Come on. Yani, not being able to recognize trash doesn't make any sense. All right. It's been an hour. I would like you to look at this screen here, and I need you to understand, to pay attention. We've got two things, okay? In this next screen, and that's where we're going to pick up next Friday, inshallah. We have the minor and major signs before the Day of Judgment, and the differences between minor and major signs before the Day of Judgment. All right? Now, once we do that, I'm going to talk about a trio of trials, 3 trials that will come one after the other. And the first one might resemble Corona so much. But we're going to explore really and see, is this talking about the coronavirus? Is it talking even about our time period or not?